Building the Body Beautiful, the Bagot Stack Stretch and Swing System. By Mrs. Bagot Stack. Chapter 17, Diet. Okay, get a grip. In hot countries, the native climbs his banana or date palm when he is hungry, eats his fill, and is glad to get as much as he can. In cold countries, the Icelander jumps with joy when the word walrus rings in his ears, rushes to the shore, and when at last the monster lies palpitating on the beach, he plunges his knife in there and then and gorges himself to repletion. I'm sure the natives with their palms and the Icelanders would have something to say about that paragraph. But anyhow, the kind of food which these two eat is diametrically opposite, but the healthy result is identical because they eat when they are hungry. The food to them is appetizing and perfectly fresh. These, I believe, are the three main points about diet. Okay, then she's got a point. Number 1, eat plenty when hungry. Number 2, food should be appetizing. Number 3, food should be fresh. The world's libraries are well stocked nowadays with innumerable scientific works on foodstuffs, their calorific values, vitamin content, and so forth. There is, therefore, no necessity for me to burden the public with my quota on this aspect of the diet question. Perhaps it will be more useful to my readers, if I have any, if I describe how good results can be obtained in the body itself by adhering to a few wise rules about eating. Before we discuss the food or fuel, let us consider the state of the body machine which is going to receive and deal with this fuel. Many who in an amateurish way choose some of these modern crank diets, which impoverish the system for they consist chiefly of a dreary list of don'ts, forget the body machine altogether. If a car has something wrong in the works, you may try any petrol you like and it won't move. First, mend the works, and then it is, of course, quite true that different oils suit different cars. You will judge which is best by the smooth running of the car. The body machine can be put in perfect order for the reception of the food fuel by the exercise regime described in the preceding pages, and also by adhering closely to the 3 points mentioned above. These need explanation. Take the first. Eat plenty when hungry. Most civilized people are either rich and never hungry, their meals follow each other in too quick succession, or else poor and always hungry. So it is, unfortunately, financially impossible for them to follow this rule. Someday this last will be universally altered, and at least every child who is hungry will be fed. Under normal conditions, the sensation of hunger is the natural guide to the readiness of the body machine for food, and nearly all is grist that comes to the mill. Only the delicate need be so niggling over their food. The more healthy we become, the wider can be our choice. We all know that exercise and fresh air create good appetites, so we must just manage to have both every day. The business girl who carries a fruit lunch with her, walks to some adjoining park and eats it in the open air, will feel far fresher and more nourished than she who spends her precious minutes off duty being jostled by crowds, kept waiting, and finally bolting a meal that is now too hurried and large for her to be able to digest it sufficiently before starting work again. That meal, followed by others, will start the body machine going out of order. When this happens, she will probably begin to diet herself. It is, however, not the food, but the method that needs alteration. Remember then to exercise if possible in the open air before a meal in order to produce the healthy sensation of hunger. Again, this sensation of hunger will also be produced if the digestive tract is clean. Remember then to clean the tract. Drink 2 glasses of cold water early in the morning and again in the evening. More if you choose, but these for certain. You can add orange or lemon juice if you like. Lemon is a good natural and safe disinfectant. Oranges are full of vitamin C, but too many are bad for the liver. Last thing at night, 1 orange is often a wonderful sleeping draught. Next, clear the tract. The hungry sensation will be felt if the digestive tract is kept clear by eating only 1 good meal a day, or at most 2. No eating between meals. Breakfast and dinner, or dinner only, and plenty of it, is the health regime. Lunch, if any, should not be a meal, but a scouring by green vegetables or raw fruit, followed by 1 small drink of any kind, say a cup of coffee. Breakfast and dinner are usually required by world's workers. But for those who have no buses, sidecars or trains to catch, or early morning nerve strain, breakfast can be made another scourer by eating only fruit, followed by a hot drink. When the 1 good meal of the day comes round, it is worthwhile eating it. Surely it is far better to enjoy looking forward hopefully to dinner than looking back regretfully at lunch. This dinner will be quite substantial enough if it consists of 3 courses. More than that are curses. The choice lies with the individual, aided if she likes by her favourite scientific diet book. But by then she may feel so ready for a meal that she will discard theory and trust, as nature intended her to do, to her hunger instinct to guide her. She is now almost certain to assimilate most of what she eats, and the assimilation is what matters. In case anyone thinks this 1 or at most 2 meal regime is just a crank theory, let me explain why I believe it to be so efficacious. The reasons are twofold. First, for the sake of the digestion, and second, for the figure. Take the digestion first. The digestive tract is little more than a glorified tube stretching from the throat to the rectum, widening in certain parts such as the stomach, and cecum, the entrance to the colon low down on the right-hand side. 1 good meal acts as a stimulus to this muscular tube. It stretches before the meal and contracts behind, thus hurrying the meal along. If another and yet another meal is flung in too soon, the tube becomes stretched, but being too full, the strong contractions which should follow have little chance of materializing. They grow weak and the food travels slowly and becomes stagnant. Poisonous gases, more dangerous even than stagnant food, are produced. They weaken and stretch the tube still more and are apt to become chronic and finally affect the heart. Flatulence is nearly always a sign of a slow digestion. The slowing happens very commonly in the region of the cecum, because it is here that the residue of the food has to travel upwards and needs strong muscular contractions to push it up. The overloaded cecum, the result of the slow digestion, often leads to all kinds of repercussions, even to appendicitis, for the appendix lies at its base. In my opinion, the speed, or otherwise, with which food passes the cecum is an index to the general health of the whole digestion, and pains felt in this region, however they may develop later, in 9 cases out of 10 originate first in the overloaded cecum. Among the most valuable exercises in the preceding lists are those for emptying the cecum. The abdominal section B, exercise 9, and spine A, exercises 9 and 10. They accomplish this by turning the cm upside down and then applying deep auto-massage by internal muscular exercise. This is very useful in cases of obstinate constipation, provided the doctor approves. To return for one moment to flatulence. This can occur also where eating is accompanied by too much liquid, interminable portions of tea, or where taken along the plan a little and often. This latter method supplies insufficient stimulus for the strong expansions and contractions in the tube which are necessary for speed, and again the digestion is slowed down. Internal exercise, one meal sufficiently large to excite the muscular movements of the tube itself, is just as essential for health as the other exercise movements described in previous chapters. So much for the digestion. Now comes the figure value of this method versus strenuous dieting. Niggling absentations meal after meal weaken the nerves and take away appetite and thereby the power of assimilation. The organs which could clear the body of useless deposits of fat become impoverished and anemic in their action due to lack of nourishment and therefore unable to reduce the deep-lying internal clogging deposits of fat which should be cleared out daily or they will accumulate rapidly. Surface fat is all that most women worry about, but the internal deposits are the ones to shift, and by the only means we have of doing so, namely the action of strong, well-nourished organs. For those people who are abnormally fat, the most efficacious treatment is 2 days in bed. For those people who are abnormally fat, the most efficacious treatment is 2 days in bed once a fortnight or once a month, with nothing to devour but a good book and nothing to drink but fruit juices, or 1 day of starvation followed by one of normal eating. Carry this through for 1 month. To sum up the 3 previous rules which come under the heading Eat Plenty When Hungry: A. Exercise, if possible, in the open air before a meal. B. Clean the digestive tract. C. Clear the track. The second point, food should be appetizing, is obvious. Eyes, nose and taste all play their part in digestion, and monotonous, badly served food definitely undermines the health. The mother who is a good cook need never consider herself a drudge, for she is contributing her very practical share to the world's sum of health. A good cook is one who can make the viands attractive to the palate and also the digestion. The two do not always go together. Take vegetables, for example. Most people now realise they should be steamed if they are to retain their bone-building properties, so important for children. Yet some would consider the cook a good one who served them up the bright green colour which remains if boiled. Actually, if vegetables must be boiled, it is better to boil them all together into a vegetable soup and put them through a sieve. This soup forms a wonderful bone builder. Now for the third and final point about food. Food should be fresh. It is almost impossible to carry out this precept to the letter. The necessity for patent, tinned, bottled and frozen foodstuffs in feeding a huge population is obvious. To supplement their use, something raw should be eaten every day. Fruit or some vegetables, such as tomatoes or lettuce, though I'm not a great believer in the popular lettuce for everyone. In many cases, it's very hard to digest. Also, unless grown in one's own garden, it passes through too many hands for my taste. Of course, the kitchen garden is the ideal. Out of the garden into the pot is a good slogan. A slogan for England. If only England could solve her agricultural problems, perhaps she would again produce a vigorous people full of the old hardy pioneer spirit. For food can affect the character. I am sure of that. To come from the sublime to the utterly ridiculous, I attribute my child's healthy build to my good luck in having been able, before she was born, to live entirely on a magnificent variety of fresh vegetables grown in our Indian garden. I confess my favourite tomatoes figured largely on the list. If only mothers and children in the poorer quarters of our cities could have extra rations of fresh food, sunlight and fresh air, there is little doubt that rickets, that bone-deforming disease, would entirely disappear. If I close this chapter by giving a general diet for everyone, it will defeat my aim, which is to benefit, not to kill. No general statements are of much value to the individual. She herself must arrive at what is best. Yet I know that some of my readers will want something more definite, and so, on account of this, and not in the spirit of egoism, but rather one of humour, I append my own daily regime, and also my daughter's. She is now 16. Okay, so we have the daily regime. At 6:45, I spring out of bed, much against my will. At 6:50, I plunge my face in cold water. I turn the tap on and pull the plug out so that the swirl of running water will clear my open eyes. After this, my face looks worse than ever, but it feels lovely. Take a handful of water containing 4 drops to a tumbler of a safe, non-poisonous disinfectant and sniff it very gently as far as my nostrils, but no further. Throw my head back and let this water, if it will, trickle through to disinfect the back of my throat just behind the uvula, a most difficult spot to reach. Blow my nose, wash my mouth and teeth with a weak disinfectant. I use Milton. I've actually bleached clothes with Milton. I don't think that's a weak disinfectant. And drink a glass of cold water. That's all done in 5 minutes, because at 6:55, get ready for the records I need for exercising. A list is appended. 7 a.m. Exercise for half an hour, stripped with all the windows open, but sufficiently curtained to the gramophone music. This exercising always includes hair, neck and face massage as described under circulation. 7:30 a.m. Drink another glass of water, have my bath, which I am then in a mood for writing. This book has been written before breakfast, so if any very hungry passages are found, that is the reason. 8:45 a.m. Breakfast, hurrah! Fruit, sometimes a slice of hard toast, white or brown, or homemade brown bread, plenty of butter, and a cup of either tea or coffee with cream, because I like it. There should be no eating between meals, but I often fall and at 11 a.m. have a cup of coffee with cream because I like it. Lunch, vegetables, raw or steamed, or vegetable soup. I finish with coffee and cream because, etc., etc. Dinner, a little soup. Very little liquid should be taken with other food. Fish or chicken. I dislike meat. Plenty of potatoes and butter and steamed vegetables. Some pretty sweet, which I like to look at as well as eat. Sweet biscuits or chocolates, and coffee and cream because, well, for the usual reason. Through the evening, a glass or 2 of cold water, and if hungry, before going to bed, an orange. I then get as much sleep as I can possibly manage, for sleep is the great nerve builder. After each meal, I wash my teeth. My child, now age 16. When a baby, I nursed her for 6 months. This, I believe, more than anything else, lays the foundations of a healthy digestion for life. As she grew older, she had the usual regime. Truby King is one of the great authorities on young children. Always, until 8 years old, she had her hour or more of sleep in the open air during the day, as well as 12 hours at night, for a child's nerves cannot be too carefully planned for. She used even to be wakened gently by singing and always go to sleep with some happy thought suggested. I think sleep, fresh air and sunlight certainly build children's bodies even more than food. Now she gets up at 7:45 a.m. and goes through the same morning regime as mine. As she is still growing, her breakfast is a very different affair. At 8:45 a.m. she has breakfast, porridge and milk, the milk unboiled, egg and bacon or its equivalent, brown bread or white toast, butter and honey or marmalade if homemade and of a good brand, very weak tea and fruit. Lunch, the same as mine. Dinner, the same as mine, except that she has meat if she likes, and I need hardly say not as much coffee as I find necessary. When she was younger, she had dinner in the middle of the day. Bed, if possible, at 9:30 and about 10 hours sleep with windows wide open. Before I close the book, a word more about the skin. Not a scientific analysis, but a personal credo. I believe the healthy skin to be antiseptic. If unhampered, it breathes out poison which should mingle with the air and provide a germ-proof shelter. But if caught by the clothes, they should be constantly changed or the poisons will be reabsorbed. I believe the healthy skin drinks in daylight, which is as nourishing and necessary to the nerves as food is to the whole body. The air on the skin stimulates the action of the glands. I believe the skin is probably a map connected with the inner and hidden workings of the organs, and someday the exact condition of each organ will be diagnosed by its corresponding surface on the skin. I believe, and at this point I may be taken for a lunatic, the skin to have a psychic quality which can be developed as a guide in choosing friends. Children and dogs have retained this instinctive quality more than obtuse grown-ups. To sum up, I believe in the healthy skin. Except the brain, the skin is, to my mind, for health, the most important and, except on the face, the most neglected part of the whole body. Now, dear reader, and you are dear, for have we not been working together intimately and constructively for 10 weeks? If this book turns out to be of the slightest value to you, please have mercy and forgive its shortcomings. I quoted at the beginning the words of an inspiring friend of mine. Action is the prayer that is answered. This bit of action is now over for me, thank heaven. I am rather glad that I can return to sitting with my heels on the mantelpiece and in my heart a glorious vision of a world where the women are so beautiful that they are an inspiration, not a temptation, for thus the happy future of the whole human race will be assured. The end.